666 The Mark of America, Seat of the Beast Section 8 The Sharp Two-Edged Sword. The insistent determination of the wise ones to assert their individuality has propelled the human kingdom into a chaotic state of affairs that threatens its very existence. Under the auspices and power of but a few wise ones, the survival of the majority hangs precariously thin by a small thread unwoven from the tapestry of humanity. One end of the thread is held by a small percentage of human beings. At the other dangles the masses, who unknowingly are bound by a delicate link, which if severed, would precipitate their downfall or their liberation. There is a sword that can cut both ways and sever the thread with one mighty blow. It can release the weight dangling from its unsteady point of attachment, giving solid ground to maintain its mass with stability. As it cuts, the thread is left dangling without purpose, held by those who are no longer needed to hold it up. The sword is truth. There are more than 6 billion human beings upon the earth at this time. Less than 1%, 60 million, of these hold the rest in chains. One of slavery and inequality from which there is no escape. The promise of becoming one of the elite one of this blessed 1% assures the efficacy of the rationale for the change. Work hard enough in the fields of slavery, and one day you might become a master. Upon the wall in plain view of the enslaved hangs the key to their chains. It is not a tangible key, because there is no actual lock. It is the writing upon the wall that resonates in words that the chained cannot interpret for themselves. The truth shall set you free. Someone must boldly step forward without agenda and personal expectation, wielding the sword of truth in defense of the yoked. The sword will cut for the benefit of the poor, the meek, the downtrodden, and the exploited of the world. But for the exalted, who are those who live deliciously and fare sumptuously from the woes of others, the sword only cuts one way. The lofty looks of man must be humbled, and the haughtiness of men bowed down. The sword of truth and justice must fall upon every one who is proud and lofty, and upon every one who is lifted up, and they must be brought low. Like glorious trees of both cedar and oak that are high and lifted up, the truth must fall them into splintered wood. It must fall upon the high mountains, and upon all the hills that are lifted up, and upon every high tower, and upon every fenced wall, which are the borders that keep the lofty isolated like islands of the sea. These mountains will flee at the truth, and the islands will be removed out of their place. It must fall upon all the ships which sail upon the sea of humanity, carrying treasures of silver and gold, the idols of man, from one port of merchandise to another. The truth must fall upon all the pleasant pictures painted by the brushes of selfish artists who have colored beauty which they alone behold. The sword of truth will cause the loftiness of man to bow down, and the haughtiness of men to become low, for the truth alone must be exalted for freedom to reign. When the truth is revealed, a man will cast his idols of silver, and his idols of gold, which were made each one for himself to worship, to the moles and to the bats which live in the clefts of rocks, and on the tops of ragged stones. Who are these wise ones, and wherein are they to be accounted of? The mighty man, and the man of war, the judge, and the prophet, and the prudent, and the ancient, the captain of 50, and the honorable man, and the counselor, and the cunning artificer, and the eloquent orator. These shall all cease, because their breath is in their nostrils, and the truth they have not known. The truth will exalt the children to be their princes, and babes shall rule over them. Here is that truth. For every one person who can claim success in reaching the standard of accepted self-awareness and prosperity, 99 others suffer from the means used to achieve this prosperity without the ability to attain it for themselves. In the race to be counted of worth in a world of values and standards set to benefit those who set them, no notice is given to the devastating effects of the contest. Freedom is an abstract idea perpetuated by those in power over others. Evident forced slavery has simply been replaced with tacit slavery. Rising to the sound of a rooster's crow to harness the mule to the plow has been replaced with the obtrusive sound of an alarm clock that signals the beginning of another enslaved day. In both types of slavery, the wise ones are forced to work or they will die. The former was provided food, clothing, and shelter. The latter is given a piece of paper that must be exchanged for commodities owned by another slave owner. The slave's desire to live enriches the landowner for whom he or she works, and also the merchant from whom he or she must purchase life. The former was forced into chains if work and rules were not completed as established by the master. The latter is locked in a jail cell for the same reasons. Neither chose to be born into slavery. Each would have rather been born the child of a slave owner, one who never saw the butt end of a mule pulling a harrow, or the other who will never hear the sound of a time punch clock. Though modern owners do not outwardly display their employees as personal human property, the slave trade has transformed itself into a shared commodity of the corporations and wealthy of the world. Within the commercial organizations that buy and sell goods, make products, and provide services, there exists a proprietary implication that if a slave refuses to work for one business in order to remain alive, the rebellious runaway must submit to another. By running away from one plantation, the need to eat and be clothed and housed necessitates the acceptance of another. Chained ignorantly without lock or key, the writing on the wall has little effect on the minds of the wise ones who see themselves as individual and equal human beings instead of slaves. Thus, have they been convinced and deceived. The very essence of their innate human nature disallows the possibility that they can be controlled. They are convinced that it is possible that one day they, too, might own a business and have others work for them, forgetting their immediate state of enslavement by the illusory daydream of financial freedom and wealth. Day after day, their minds are gratified and lulled into a tempered calm as they toil in the fields, cubicles, or other employment they do not enjoy but have chosen by force. The dream satisfies their inner conflict by convincing them that it is possible to become a landowner. Hence, they are indeed equal to their masters who were once enslaved like them. The wise ones are not isolated to being slaves to the rich and powerful, but have also become indentured to their own desire to become a master. Getting ahead in the world has become the model of individuality. It becomes easier for them to alienate their minds from the conditions of poverty and destitution required at the bottom of the corporate chain, because of the image in their minds of future success and the opportunity to jump from the 99% to the 1%. The wise ones have become desensitized and pay no attention to human history that has paved a path of awareness to the place where the thin thread hangs and demonstrates that the set percentages have never changed, and never will. One wise one on top needs 99 others below in order to keep them buoyed up on the sea of humanity. Many of the 99 die with little notice or fanfare and are soon replaced by other unknown faces, struggling to stay alive and hoping to one day reach the top. The ones pay no attention to the loss of faceless individuals they knew nothing about. Clothed in robes of excess and prosperity, they find no relevance in any matter outside the walls of their personal kingdom of gratification and family. The robes by which they are clothed came at a price to cost of other human beings whose every breath stitched the woven threads of their contrived tapestries. In the torrid sun, the stones of the fields are removed by calloused hands. Sweat stings the eyes of those who work tirelessly, laboring until the sun gives way to a reprieve of darkness. 10. Each day the field is plowed, furrowed, and prepared for seed, which requires more sweat, more toil, and more death to produce the billowing soft fibers. 20. When nature takes its course, and the mortality of verdant leaves becomes evident by the colors of harvest, more souls are tasked with the burden of collecting the crop. Nature's product is delivered to others 30. Day after day, night after night, broken hearts and souls sit in the same position, separating and spinning the delicate fibers into thread 40. Passed on to others who stand at the loom, or the machines that have replaced it, the threads are woven into cloth using the same process, every minute of every day of every year, expressing the apparition of a human shadow cast upon the loom, until no distinction can be made between the 250. The cloth is cut and sewn by bent backs and fingers, sitting undaunted in dungeons of production overseen by taskmasters who peer intrusively, assuring that no move is made that is not expected. The same moves expected yesterday, today, and tomorrow 60. Checked for quality and packaged appropriately, the product is ready to be transported by redundant hands and hearts 70. Transportation provides the means up the chain by following roads of boredom and melancholy, finally arriving to unload the cargo 80. Received with pride and hope of profit, the changed and fabricated natural seed is proudly displayed with a learned sense of fashion by those whose hope resides in its marketable placement 90. Unaware of the 99 people who brought it into being, the one out shopping sees the beautiful robe that is envisioned hanging next to the many others in the wardrobe of the one who will turn off the closet light, never giving a second thought from where each robe came. Money has become the determining value by which others are appreciated or depreciated among the wise ones. A brain surgeon spends his time studying and gaining experience to save lives. These doctors allow slaves to remain well enough to continue working in the fields where they pick the strawberries and milk the cows from which the scarlet fruits are covered with white delight to satisfy the surgeon's palate. Without something to eat, from where would the doctor get the energy to save lives? How many lives does he save in comparison to how many are saved by the produce of the hard-working field workers? It takes only one doctor to operate on a brain, but 99 migrant workers to assure the harvest doesn't spoil in the countryside fields. The one's worth is augmented, not only by the values they have placed upon their own abilities, but also by the prospect that by the sweat of the brows of unseen others of lesser means, their worth can be increased. Appalling to human decency, corporations and capitalistic business enterprises offer stock in their companies to the ones, promising that by paying low wages, few benefits, and keeping the 99% in slavery, a healthy dividend will be paid for doing absolutely nothing. These stocks are more precious to the holder than the lives of the oppressed needed to create their value. To avoid personal accountability for actions deemed necessary in pursuing profit, the wise ones found a way to detach themselves from the stigma of greed and merchant despotism. The introduction of corporations and charitable foundations created entities as abstract as the values placed upon them. Corporations are groups of wise ones acting as a single entity with one purpose only: profit. Charitable organizations are set up to bring value to the ones who set them up, or donate to them, with attempts to hide profits and deceive themselves and the rest of the 99, that by what they are doing, they are solving the world's problems. Without taking away the purpose for which they are established, corporations and charitable foundations cannot acknowledge that the real problem is slavery, and they do absolutely nothing about this. Profit is the monetary worth that remains after the value of the 99 has been subtracted from the value of the 1. To increase the sum of this insensitive equation, the value of either the 1 or the 99 must be decreased proportionally to obtain the desired amount of profit. Since corporations and foundations have replaced the 1, or better, the ones have become the corporations and foundations, and most business laws protect and secure the value of the person founding these entities. Only one determinant is left to be lowered to increase the overall profit. The equation is corporate/foundation value, human value, equals profit. These entities will not, by choice, devalue themselves, therefore, the only determinant left to be reduced is human value. At length, there are those who awaken from the deep sleep into which they have been lulled by the carnal security provided by their master. By the light of day, they see the hopelessness in reaching the top of the chain. They witness others clambering over each other, dragging each other down in their attempt to reach the top. They realize they have been deceived by the master, and that there is no lock on their chain. Cast aside, the chain no longer has significance to their individual state of existence. Yet, without it, they will die. So they fight the masters, determined to proclaim their independence from the chains by which they were bound. But their sticks and stones are no match for their masters' whips and weapons. They either submit or are killed. These are seen as rebellious criminals, terrorists, or insurgents who have no hope of being valued by others for what they refuse to do. So they gain value in their own eyes by what they decide to do for themselves. They did not set the standard and values by which they have been judged by others. They had no part of the decision made between two wise ones insistent on perpetuating their own value by creating the standards. Hitherto forced into existence, they must submit the identifying nature of their souls to the will of others' expectations. Submit or die is a far cry from the liberty inalienably guaranteed by free will and the ability to recognize the self. Submit to what? To the self-evident realization that one wise one is not considered as good as another? Can this submission transcend the feeling of knowing that the self exists independently because of its ability to think and recognize itself? Claiming one is better than another prioritizes the worth of existence, thus giving credence to the imposed reality that supremacy negates the lives of those considered inferior. The 99 do not exist to the one. Many years might pass before the 99% finally realizes they are not valued by the 1% as equals. But as they do, a revolution of thought replaces their inner struggles with wars and rumor of wars, demanding that they are recognized and valued as equal human beings. Unfortunately for the masses, even if the majority possess powerful handheld weapons and the physical strength to wield them against the minority, technological superiority allows just one to be at the controls of a warplane or nuclear weapon and quash any revolution of the greater number. The one will always rule and set the measures, the values, and the standard to which the 99 must submit or be killed. What is needed is for the 99 to appoint one to represent them, who becomes the anointed one, having the power and knowledge to represent all equally. This chosen one must possess the gentle nature of a lamb to assure equality and fairness to all, but brandish a sword from which none are immune from the strength of its blow. This anointed one is truth and justice for all equally. The patience of the saints await the triumphant day when the corruption of man, which supports the dragon, the beast, the image, and the mark, all which cause the wrath of God, are subdued by the sharp two-edged sword of truth and justice. This concludes 666 The Mark of America, Seat of the Beast Section 8 The Sharp Two-Edged Sword.